Welcome to Transcending the Rabbit Hole. I'm Brandy Anderson. I'm a spiritual director and Jungian coach on an ever-winding contemplative path of becoming. I'm the author of Through the Veil, A Glimpse into the Afterlife, and co-host of Spectral Symposium podcast. I'm joined today by my very good friends and co-hosts, Annalise and Parker Bess. Annalise is a singer, songwriter, sound healer, and spiritual influencer dedicated to raising human consciousness as she shares her awakening journey on TikTok. Parker is a true knowledge seeker and truth bringer in the realm of esoteric wisdom. Parker has a solid understanding of metaphysical concepts with expertise in the shadowy corridors of secret societies, occult knowledge, and ancient aliens and ufology. We invite you to pry open your third eye and journey with us through the cosmic rabbit hole as we alchemize esoteric insights in a quest for ultimate truth.
Falling down the rabbit hole again.
Welcome back to another episode of Transcending the Rabbit Hole. Imagine for a moment a universe where every decision you never made carved out an entirely new path, a world where each unchosen possibility plays out in alternate realities. What if each what-if moment you've ever faced actually exists somewhere with a version of you living out those alternate choices? Whether you turned left instead of right, took that job, or said yes instead of no, these choices might exist beyond our perception, creating infinite branches of reality. Today, we're diving headfirst into the rabbit hole, exploring parallel realities, the Mandela Effect, and the strange phenomenon we call déjà vu. Are we shifting timelines without realizing it, slipping between multiverses like pages in a cosmic novel? Or is reality itself bending to the power of perception? Buckle up, because the veil is thinning and the rabbit hole just got deeper. Annalise and Parker, it's a privilege to transcend this rabbit hole with you guys.
Good to be here for this one. That was great, Brandy. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, yeah. I'm
be
excited for this one. It's such a mind bender to even think about, let alone try to articulate the multiverse.
Yes.
Yeah. So I thought a good place to kick us off was, just be to explain what is the multiverse. And I would just say that the multiverse theory is the idea that our universe, everything we know, space, time, matter, energy, and physical laws, may be just one of many universes that exist simultaneously, potentially with different physical laws, dimensions, or histories. There are different multiverse theories depending on the branch of science or philosophy that you're looking at. So I thought a good place to start off this conversation is to just give a brief rundown of some of those theories. There's the cosmological multiverse that arises from the theory of cosmic inflation. And the idea is just that the universe expanded rapidly right after the Big Bang, and some regions may stop inflating while others continue, creating bubble universes, including ours, and each bubble could have different constants or physical laws. An analogy would be to think of boiling water, where each bubble is a different universe forming in a large cosmic soup. Then there's the quantum multiverse, the many worlds interpretation. Probably a lot of people have heard of that. And in quantum physics, this theory suggests that every possible outcome of a quantum event actually occurs in its own branch of reality. So when you flip a coin, one universe experiences heads and another gets tails. And another theory is the mathematical universe hypothesis proposed by Max Tegmark. And this theory says that any mathematically possible universe exists, and ours is just one of many in existence. And the last one I'll mention is string theory. String theory is a theoretical framework in physics that suggests that the most fundamental building blocks of the universe aren't point-like particles like electrons or quarks, but tiny vibrating strings of energy. And just like how different notes on a guitar string come from different vibrations, each type of fundamental particle, whether it be photon, electron, a quark, is a different note played by these tiny strings. And so it's fascinating to consider that the universe we live in might just be one song in a symphony of all possible string vibrations. Anyway, that's just a brief and very simplified overview of some of the popular theories, and I must say it's all out of my pay grade. Quantum physics is a brain twister, and we're primarily coming at this from a spiritual perspective. So we're exploring the implications of living in a multiverse and how that might play out in the evolution of human consciousness without getting too lost in the weeds of scientific jargon here today, though we will be touching on some experiments that help to understand the multiverse. But I'll just stop here and see what's coming up for Annalise and Parker.
Woo, you knocked my socks off. I'm just taking it in. I like the theories. I hadn't heard those before you shared them. I like the string theory because I do believe that everything is energy, frequency, the different notes in one giant song. So that one resonates, but I'm really interested to dive into this more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I love everything to do with the multiverse theories and all that stuff. I like what Emily said about the string theory because everything is energy, vibration, and frequency. And Nikola Tesla said that, and it's starting to become true from just a scientific standpoint. It's the scientificness of everything is catching up to spirituality, which is what I've really found to be really cool with the whole parallel universes and multiverse theories. I will say I saw a video of I guess he's considered the smartest guy in the world or something like that, IQ wise. But he was saying that if he could describe if he could describe the multiverse, it would be the bubble theory, where it's like multiple, little bubbles everywhere that people's universes. So nobody knows, but it's really cool. And the science stuff that's catching up to spirituality is, it's just another thing in itself. It's amazing, and I truly believe in the parallel realities. I believe each decision, there is another consequence, maybe not right here where we are, but in another parallel reality.
Yeah. And I like that you said that, nobody really knows, because I've asked my sources through the veil which of these theories is right, and they won't tell me. But based on my conversations with them over the years, I'm inclined to think none of them are exactly right. And in one conversation, I remember my grandmother said they keep trying to figure us out, but they can't. And then she typed the word funny. So it was almost an amusement with, here on this side of things, we're trying to conceptualize and figure everything out. But yeah, I don't think any of these theories really do the trick. I don't think any one theory is the answer.
I agree. What's that saying? Something, they're all just fingers pointing at the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how's that go?
Yeah, as well, I think it was Rumi, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's just like mysticism in general, but it's just any words that we could try to use to explain the divine are just fingers pointing at the moon is the idea.
There it is.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you. Yes, because, reality is God. I used to, of course, view God as how we've said that old man in the sky, Zeus on a cloud, but God is the ground of our being, which is reality, which is not going to be just one dimensional. It can't be just here. And I know other people are experiencing what feels like a really rapid uptick in time, even though time's not real, but that feeling of the days are just faster, life is faster. And with the age of Aquarius and all that's going on, in a planetary context, it's really affecting realities here. And a lot of people don't know that. I didn't know that until I kind of opened myself up more to that kind of lane of knowledge. But there's a lot more going on than just this 3D. And I know we'll get into it, but it becomes more apparent when you look into the Mandela Effect things or déjà vu things. There's reasons for all of that. And I'm excited to dive into it more with y'all.
Yeah, me too. And I thought maybe next we could talk about a couple of experiments. They're pretty popular experiments, but they kind of set the tone for the quantum theory of the multiverse, or how that might actually work. Because quantum science really does offer some evidence that points to the reality of a multiverse, even if it's not definitive proof of its actual existence. And one experiment is the double slit experiment that probably most people have heard about. And I'll explain it briefly. Just imagine that you're shooting tiny particles like electrons or photons at a wall with two slits in it, and behind the wall is a screen that records where the particles land. And if the particles are like little bullets, then they should go through one slit or the other and then land in one of two determined places on the screen, right? But here's where it gets interesting. In the actual experiment, when no one is watching the slits, the particles act like waves, not bullets. the waves go through both slits at once, they interfere with each other and land in many places on the screen. In other words, they create a wave pattern on the screen. But if you set up an observer to see which slit the particle goes through, the interference pattern disappears. The particles suddenly act like bullets again, and they land in one of two places on the screen. So what does all this mean? It suggests that the act of just observing a particle changes its behavior. Like the act of measurement collapses that wave of possibilities into one outcome. So when we think of the implications of this on a cosmic level, the idea that just by focusing our awareness on a particle, we're not just collapsing the wave, but selecting one reality while others still exist somewhere else.
Yeah,
I like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me with the whole double split experiment. Like you said, the observer is basically projecting the outcome of it, by focusing and I'm just seeing it, just watching it, because it's breaking the particle down, like you said. And
Yeah.
I heard something as well about that, where like we could say like the Empire State Building, like it's ingrained in humanity's consciousness, like that building is there. But to somebody like in Africa or something who has never seen that building doesn't even exist. And that's what's so crazy to that person's reality, to that person's universe, because in our minds, it's subconsciously there. And there's people that see it all the time, blah, blah, blah. But like I said, the person in Africa has never seen that, heard that, or anything like that. So they have no concept. And to them, it doesn't exist. And also that theory of like, if a tree falls in the woods, does it make a sound? If the double split experiment is true, then no, it doesn't make a sound because nobody's there to observe it. So I think that's pretty interesting.
So I think our awareness is our greatest superpower. I think because our awareness is the light of God. And, where you place your awareness creates your reality. And so something that really kind of made this make sense to me, and it was totally an accident, was watching our front yard tree. We just moved from a neighborhood and we only had one tree. And I love trees. I'm definitely a tree hugger. And I would just sit in the morning, like with my tea and my Bible, my Course in Miracles, whatever I'm reading that morning. And I'd watch this tree and I'd tell it out loud, "You are so beautiful. Like, look at you, tree. You're just shining today." I would just praise it because I had, after my spiritual awakening, I had understood that the same light behind that tree is me, the same light behind me. And what we give our attention to, benefits that thing. All that to say, every fall, our tree is the last one to lose its leaves. They stay vibrant and beautiful until, every other tree on the street is dead for the winter, or dormant. And then every spring, it became the first one to bloom. It would bloom flowers long before any other of the single trees on these little single lots would bloom. And I was joking with my parents and Parker, but at the same time not joking. I think it's because I talk to it. Like I give it my awareness and I notice its beauty. I listen to a lot of Eckhart Tolle, and he talks about just the stillness that you need to really meditate, like in the presence of God, as we say. That stillness includes just observing what's right in front of you and like appreciating it for what it is. So for me, it was the tree, and I saw it make that tree healthier. And I don't think it's any different for people. It's when we pour love into people that they are vibrant and healthy. But yeah, just all that to say, our awareness is our greatest power. So you want to change your timeline or change your reality, change where you're putting your awareness, is what I've come to learn.
Yeah, 100%. And what was coming up for me when you were saying that is that experiment with the tomato plants, where there were like 3 plants where you would speak loving words of encouragement over one plant, speak hateful words into one plant, and then ignore the third plant. And over a course of time, it was fascinating to see that the ones that love was spoken over them, they flourished, they bloomed, they produced beautiful tomatoes. But the one that was, I think, ignored, just withered away. And the one that was spoken hate, maybe it withered faster, I can't remember. But there was some correlation to the fact that the words spoken over the plants actually had an effect on them. So I 100% believe that your words and your love and that energy you were putting out to that tree definitely made a difference in the way that it flourished.
I just love it. I think it just is a testament to how we are all one and interconnected. And what I say to a literal tree matters to the, not just to the tree, but to the beauty that it, produces. And
Yeah.
I was teaching our oldest son the power of words this school year, and we did similar to that experiment, did the rice experiment, where you got 3 jars of rice, one you speak love to, one you speak hate to, and one you ignore. And after a month of doing that, which was super strange, but it produced an amazing result. The love jar, the rice had liquefied, like just transformed into rice water. The hate jar had grown some mold a little bit. It was the ignore jar, though, that had just gotten really disgusting and yellow spots and mold. And it showed that ignoring something is more harmful to it than any kind of attention, whether that's hateful attention or loving attention. And because your awareness is the light of God behind the physical. So pretty trippy stuff. I mean, it just I couldn't get over that literally what we spoke to the rice changed the rice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the so going off about what you both have said, what you focus on and give your attention and energy to, it makes something happen to that object or that thing because you're giving power to it. Also, on the like a darker scale of things, like music you listen to, there's another experiment where the same type of thing with the water, where they play classical Mozart music and then froze the water right after the song, and it was like crystal clear snowflake looking like ice crystals in the frozen ice. And then they did like rap music, like explicit rap music, and it came out as just like disgusting mud puddle looking ice crystals. And they did it with another one, and it was just kind of hazy. But yeah, I mean, it just kind of shows you like the words have power, and when you say those like good words to things, it gives good energy to those things. Or if you're sitting there cursing the rice or you're cursing the water or whatever, that bad energy is there. And when they freeze it, you can see it in the crystals. Like you can literally see the ice crystal react to what you're saying to it. And that's just amazing. And then your body is like 80% water. So if you're telling yourself like, oh, I suck, I'm so bad, I suck at being a dad or whatever, that imagine those crystals in you, that water in you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a powerful point, because the words that we speak truly have a great power over, not over what's around us, but our own selves, because we're the first people to hear our own words, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's powerful. And I think this conversation would not be complete if we didn't mention Schrodinger's cat as one of the experiments for the multiverse.
Yeah.
Are you guys familiar with Schrodinger's cat? I'm sure you've heard of that.
I don't know that I have, Brandy. I don't think I have.
Yeah, so for anybody who's not familiar, I figured I would run through what Schrodinger's cat, that experiment, is about, because I think it gives evidence for the multiverse that we're talking about today. So imagine this, that you put a cat in a sealed box, and inside the box is a tiny bit of radioactive material, a Geiger counter, a vial of poison, and a hammer rigged to break that vial only if the Geiger counter senses radiation. So there's a 50-50 chance that the radioactive atom will decay, and therefore there's a 50-50 chance that the cat lives. But here's where it gets weird. Until you open that box, you don't know whether the cat is alive or dead. And in quantum mechanics, the radioactive atom is in a state called superposition. It has both decayed and not decayed at the same time, which means that the cat is both dead and alive at the same time until you look. In other words, all possibilities exist until you place your awareness on it. And the double slit experiment that we already discussed tells us the same thing, that all possibilities exist in the quantum realm, and it is our consciousness that determines the outcome.
That is so trippy.
Now I remember it, Brandy.
Yeah.
That's
It's
nuts.
it's a total head trip, and people refer to that, that experiment all the time. But it's just hard to wrap your mind around. And I mean, I don't think we can conceptualize it. It baffles the conceptual mind. And I think that's why my loved ones, laugh at the thought that we try to figure those things out, because it's impossible to do so.
It
Right.
is. It is. And if it's all right to share, I was thinking about, it brought up for me the thought of when we were moving houses and I
Yeah.
wasn't sure kind of to turn left or turn right in a big decision. And
Yeah.
I mentioned it to you how I was so torn up about, do I go with the house, the property of my dreams, or do I go with the more logical thing that everybody else would want for me?
Yeah.
and and you were at the portal and you asked, hey, what should she do? And one of the family there came through and said something like, in every other reality, that is your house, but you will have, a wonderful life in either place. It's going to be great. But in every other timeline, in every other reality, in every other universe, I think was the wording, that is your home. And that was just blew my socks off and made me say, whoa, I knew it in my heart all along. Like, I should have listened to my heart all along, and was so grateful for that confirmation. But just the thought that the place that we chose to be our home felt like home, because in every other universe and parallel realities, it was our home. It just,
Yeah.
it really twisted my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you pick up on that resonance, and you felt it. And, yeah, I thought it was, because free will, and they always allow for free will. They wouldn't want to do anything or say anything that would violate our free will. But I thought it was beautiful how they articulated that to you. They let you know that, whatever decision you make is yours to make. And if you choose not to take this house, not to go in this direction, you'll still have a beautiful life. You'll still fulfill your purpose. It's, it's just one of many choices that you have to make. But just know this is your house and all these other realities. And so, yeah, and I thought it was beautiful how it just gave you some peace in your decision, because
Yeah.
you really were so torn up about it. So,
Yeah,
that's just
it
another
really
example
did.
of what a gift, of what a gift,
Yeah, what a
the
gift.
portal is.
Truly, because it wasn't like somebody telling me what I needed to do. I was hearing from the astral realm, a different reality, a higher realm, what I guess my highest self does in every other universe. It's not much different than what I want to do here. And to follow my heart and to follow that intuition, and that what I knew was right for us all along. It was just powerful. And speaking of, other realities and universes, that's a big part of it, I guess, is understanding this astral, the spirit realm, where all realities kind of collide. And
Yeah.
just what a gift the portal has been in the lives of those you've touched, because that's not something many get to experience, is insight into the spirit realm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a message from the other side that in one of my conversations with my loved ones through the veil, I asked them, what is the multiverse? And they printed out a beautiful response that I would love to read if you guys don't mind, since we're talking about the portal
Please.
here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so multiple realities and parallel universes means that all possibilities exist simultaneously, each branching off into different timelines based on choices, actions, or even random fluctuations. Imagine reality as an infinite web where every possible event, no matter how small, creates a new path. In one universe, a person might take one path, while in another, they take a different one, leading to entirely distinct outcomes. These realities do not erase or overwrite each other, but coexist, layered over one another like pages in an infinite book. Time within these realities is not fixed. While some universes may align with what we perceive as the present, others could exist in the distant past or an advanced future. A person might be older or younger in different versions of their life, existing simultaneously but experiencing time differently. Some timelines unfold in sync with ours, while others move at a different pace or even loop back on themselves. Reality, then, is not a singular, linear progression, but an ever-expanding, multidimensional structure where every version of existence is playing out at once, shaped by infinite variations of time, choice, and circumstance.
Yeah, that's great. That's what I would describe it
that'll-
as. That's perfect.
Yeah, I thought that
that'll
was
give
just
you a
beautiful.
lot to chew on. Yeah. Oh my gosh. There's not a
Yeah.
better explanation. That's something
Right.
like most people, I feel like, in the mainstream world don't even think about this multiverse. So like, just to have that definition, we need a Wikipedia that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I just couldn't help but read it. I thought it was just beautiful, and it's the way that they articulate it is I mean, it's fascinating, but it's also beautiful and poetic. And
Right.
yeah, it just speaks to my heart. And I think,
Well, they said it so perfectly too.
yeah, for sure. And I think, we've been kind of focusing on this from a quantum lens, like quantum explanations. But you know me, I'm coming from a Jungian lens, and I see the multiverse as a mirror of the inner world. As within, so without. And just as many inner selves exist, so too many outer worlds exist. And I see the multiverse as reflecting the fragmented yet interconnected nature of the psyche. Like, what if you're not just in the universe, but you're an intersection of many universes? It's pretty trippy to think about. I mean, but shamans and mystics have long spoken of like traveling between worlds. And I think they were tapping into universal truth, intuiting alternate realities in the etheric realm. But if we think of our higher self as the soul that oversees all of our incarnations, like that part of us that's located in those higher densities, the part of us that is divine, then we can understand that this higher self is also overseeing parallel lives playing out simultaneously. And the Akashic records, or what some might think of as like the book of life, is basically the soul's archive across this multiverse. And my sources tell me that, each incarnation is what we would think of as like past lives, where we may be a different gender, a different nationality, have a different physical form entirely in each of our incarnations. But within every incarnation, there are alternate realities unfolding where we look the same. And we are the same, but our choices just spin the storyline in various ways. And it allows us to experience all of the varied aspects of life, which is helpful in our evolution or awakening process.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I don't even know what to say about that, Brandy. That's just so perfectly said. I mean, I think with it being inside, like what's inside is projected outside. Everybody's projecting their own universe, and that kind of goes with the double split experiment as well. Like if it's so hard to wrap your head around, like anybody to wrap their head around with the whole, like, if you're projecting your reality from what you are perceiving from like the inside, as in like, if you're having like a bad depression or just whatever, and that's what you're feeling, that's how your outer world is going to be. That's what you're projecting as your reality. And, and it's just, as I say this in a lot of podcasts, but it's not as simple. But if you could just tune into just a different frequency, everything will just kind of start seeming a little differently through the perception of getting out of that projection of a reality into maybe another. And like you said, Brandy, in a previous podcast, your mind doesn't know. Your mind doesn't know what's real and what's not real when it comes to how you feel. So like if you want to tune into something else, be that something else. And if somebody says, "Oh, fake it till you make it," yeah, all right, I will fake it till I make it, because my brain doesn't know the difference, and that's everybody's brain. So if you can fake it till you make it, you'll start attracting what you're embodying, and that's a whole nother reality. That's how you tune into a different parallel reality, or a different reality of yourself, or maybe even a higher version of yourself. It could be a lower version too, but it's all about your perception of what's on the inside. And just, yeah.
I think Joe Dispenza is really good at explaining this. Have y'all listened to him?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoy him because he combines like the science of spirituality with just the heart benefit, I guess the mind benefit of spirituality. And it was when I was in like my chronic pain kind of pits that I started listening to him, and he started teaching, or he teaches how to change your reality. You don't like your reality? Okay, change it. And a lot of people would say, well, I can't. I'm a victim. This has happened to me, and that has happened to me, and this has happened to me. And well, yes, you can. We think we can't because the system tells us we can't. The system tells you you are a victim, but you are the awareness of God. You get to choose how your reality goes. No, not every single bit of it. Of course, everyone else has free will too, and that impacts you. But for your little own world, I mean, Parker's right. You are the creator of your reality, and everybody's living a different one. And you can see that. Some people are living miserable realities, but if they would change their mindset, their outer world would change, because everything is just a thought. Everything stems from thought. Every building you see was created in thought, and then sketched out, and then built. And yeah, there's just, you have a lot of power to change your reality, even when it doesn't feel like that. And I know it so often doesn't feel like that, especially when your circumstances are really crummy. But your awareness is that power of God within, the hands and feet of Jesus. It's in your awareness. So where you place that will change the reality you're living. So if you don't like your reality, look at, well, where's my awareness? Like, is it on negativity? Is it on consuming, whether that's consuming media, alcohol, food, whatever? I mean, your awareness, that's the key, put it on something of love and light, and just watch love and light come to you and through you. And you will get to jump timelines that way. Like, that's how you do it, is see that reality you want, claim it, say I see it, I want it, I pray for it, I give it to God, may it be mine, and live as if you have it. And then the universe has to say yes to whatever energy you just put out. And the answer will be yes, in a great way if you do that. But it can also be yes in a negative way, of course, if you just put out that with your awareness. So it's what you make it in a much greater way than I think we are taught in our education systems.
Yeah, that was very well said, because every moment really is pregnant with potential, right? And every choice, every action is played out simultaneously, even if we're not aware of it, because it's what we're placing our awareness on. So we may be miserable in this reality. We may be having difficulties, but all of these other realities are spinning out a different reality, a different timeline, a different way of being, a different way of unfolding in the world. And so really it is all about that. And I think synchronicity also is something that's really cool to think about when we think about the multiverse. Because, I think, like, for me, the way that I process synchronicity, especially coming from a Jungian lens, I think it's drawing from the collective consciousness. Because in reality, we're all just one consciousness, and the implications of there being a multiverse to me just means that it's fragmentations of that one consciousness. Just like we're fragmentations, we fragment it off and then we become interiorly fragmented. So it's all just these little fragmentations playing themselves out for a brief time. But as we become fragmented, seeing ourselves as separate, we branch off into those many states of consciousness, like many focal points. But ultimately, our higher self, who is aware of our oneness, who is divine, is guiding. All is guiding all. So synchronicity is your higher self sending you signs to help guide you back into the awareness of oneness. And there's a book called The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot, and it gets into this, but the basic idea is that reality is a hologram, meaning that, the universe and our minds are interconnected projections from a deeper non-physical source. Drawing from quantum physics and neuroscience, Talbot suggests that paranormal experiences, synchronicities, and even consciousness itself arise because everything is part of a unified non-local field. And so in this model, time and space are illusions. And what we perceive as reality is just one version among many, which I think is spot on, really.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, just think of, like, where do you go when you dream, You don't stay in the physical, you go somewhere much deeper, much more spiritual.
Yeah.
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 I like what Bashar says about it. I don't necessarily agree with everything Bashar says, but it's very interesting what he does say about, like, parallel realities and how to act upon, like, your highest self, or how to become your highest self, which is acting upon your highest passion to its fullest ability. And he says if you do that, then, the universe will start interacting with you, and, the laws of attraction start to happen because you're acting within like your natural higher self. And that's what everybody's here to do, is become their higher self. So I find that very interesting, because I've seen it play out with our life as well as, what he said. And I think, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like it. And I think it's funny thing is, it's exactly what Jesus said to do, pretty much. Like when he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I've said it before, but I think he's saying, be the way I am, live the truth I am, be the life I am. And what is that? That's just loving and acting on your highest potential and healing and just being a light in the world. And that's what we're here to do too. And when you start doing that and, like, give up that, I guess, that ego, that idea that you thought you wanted for your life, and instead just say, whatever, just I give it to God, I give it to the universe. What do you want of me? Take me along the flow. Buckle up, like when you make that kind of request, because it will flow, and it will flow to places you never imagined for your highest good. But truly, like, dreams can come true. You can jump timelines, meaning you can tune into those higher realities. It's just, nobody ever tells you growing up how magical the world really is. If you let it flow, fall back into it.
The world wants you
Yeah.
to look for somebody else to make it all better for you.
Yeah, 100%. Have you guys ever read that book, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig?
No.
I think so.
Oh no! Oh my God! Well, typically I'm not a fiction fan, but that was one that I just could not put down. It's so good, and it's basically an exploration of the multiverse concept. So it imagines a space between life and death that's like a library full of books, and each book represents a different life. And the main character, Nora, finds herself in this liminal space, exploring the many lives she never lived. Anyway, I highly recommend it, and I'll put the link in the show notes for anyone who's interested. But it is fascinating. I mean, it's a work
Yeah.
of fiction, but it's just really tapping into this quantum theory of a multiverse and how we never really die. Death is an illusion. Time is an illusion. And we're just spinning out all of these multiple realities, these multiple manifestations of existence simultaneously, perpetually. It never ends.
Is that
Right.
is that why we feel deja vu, you think?
Yeah, have you guys ever had a moment where you feel like you've maybe been here before? Like,
Yeah.
have you experienced deja vu?
Yeah,
So
for
many
sure.
times. And it's always with these little moments that seem to not matter, but you're like walking down a certain block of town and just go, whoa, I've been here before in this exact moment. I've lived this before. Something so insignificant, but I've done this before.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll find myself, like, we just moved to this house, this new house that's our dream house, and I'm like walking down the path, and I'll find myself just like almost like zoomed in to my reality, where it's just like maybe an ultra hyper state of awareness or something, where I'm just like, dadgum, is this my life? Like, seriously? Like, whoa, am I here
Yeah.
right now? Like, I don't know if it's deja vu, but it's some kind of like zooming in, like, whoa, we're here.
Well,
This is.
you should be having deja vu because in every other reality you've already been there,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
exactly.
It should be resonating.
That's probably what it
right now.
is. It probably
Yeah.
is exactly what it is.
You know,
Probably
I've
walk
had
that
few
path a lot.
Probably so. And I've had a few like subtle deja vu moments, but nothing that really stood out too much. And like I remember that I had them, but it wasn't significant enough that I could even tell you what they were.
Yeah.
Nothing noteworthy, I guess. But some people, they really have like pretty profound, more than just a brief moment. Like maybe, a 5 to 10 minutes worth of a deja vu encounter where it's like, whoa, I have done this. I've been here. And that's pretty significant. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah. And then
Do
there's
you think
premonitions too on the other end.
do you think it's deja vu, that it's that you've lived it before in like a parallel universe, or that you've lived it in a previous lifetime as a different person? Like say in the last lifetime I was a man living in China. Okay. So would I have lived it as that man before and now I'm living it as me? Or do you think it's parallel realities? Like I'm feeling what I lived an hour ago in another reality.
Yeah. Well, personally, I think it's more of the parallel reality thing because in a past life, you would have been a whole different person, right?
Yeah.
And you may have geographically in a whole other, you could have been not even in the same, region.
Right.
And so the odds of having something loop back like that would be less. Like if you're in the United States now, but in a past life you were in Africa or something like that, and you were doing, everything is just different, the cultural context.
Yeah.
So I think I would lean toward that it's alternate realities, but, scientists often explain deja vu as like a neural misfire. They'd say that the brain mistakenly files a new experience as a memory. But if the multiverse exists, and I believe that it does, obviously, then these misfires could actually be glimpses of those other lived lives bleeding into our consciousness. In other words, what I'm saying is I would say that our consciousness informs our brain activity and not the other way around. So if it is scientifically proven that there are these misfires in our brain when that occurs, then I would just say, yeah, it's just the outflow of that consciousness. So here are some ways that deja vu has been explained as it relates to the multiverse. One theory is that deja vu might happen when two versions of yourself across parallel universes momentarily sync, like two radio stations overlapping. So it's like it's a flicker where your consciousness remembers something that your other self already experienced, which that resonates with, with what in my conversations with my loved ones on the other side, that really resonates. But another reason might be that you briefly shift between nearly identical parallel realities. Like, in other words, it's not a memory, but a multiverse bleed through where you momentarily land in a reality where you've already taken that step. So you're actually shifting from one timeline into the other. And I've heard some people say that it could also be your higher self sending you a sign that you're on the right track, or that your higher self is giving you a gentle nudge to let you know maybe that you've reached a crossroads that your soul has been moving toward across many lifetimes and realities. And my loved ones through the veil, when, they tell me that deja vu is caused when this is an exact quote, they said, when we bump into an alternate reality. And I kind of think of it as a tuning fork where each version of ourselves vibrates at slightly different frequencies. And then when the frequencies momentarily harmonize, we experience deja vu.
So, that's right, I think. I mean, that just makes sense. Like, you have two tuning forks, you bang one and let it just go off for a second, you bang the other. Eventually, it's going to ring at the same frequency, but maybe just for a second, but it's still going to do that,
Yeah.
Yes.
That makes
And
sense.
everything is sound, everything is frequency, everything. So that makes total sense. It does. It
Yeah.
made me think of, I've heard several, I guess, kind of read testimonies of people who have been doing something like, okay, for example, the man I listened to, he was driving down the road. He came up to a stop sign. Next thing he knows, he's on a street on the other side of town. So like the comment section is where I went, of course, like what happened to him? And there's a word, I'm blanking on what it's called, but there is a term for it. And you can search this, but the theory is that they died. So like maybe a car hit them at the stop sign, but instead of dying, their consciousness jumped timelines like right then and ended up in a car on the other side of town, unaware of how they got there, because their consciousness has jumped timelines to prevent them from physically dying.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of testaments of that. It's not just one guy. I've heard it's a whole thing.
Yeah, we could do a whole episode on just that. It's called Quantum Immortality, and it's
There it is.
fascinating.
There it
And
is.
the book that I mentioned, The Midnight Library, that's it. It's quantum immortality. That's what that is about. Is that the multiverse is really just a perpetual playing out. Like death is an illusion, and
Yeah.
when you die in one reality, you just shift your consciousness into another, and you just continue to. I don't necessarily believe that personally, just because I am having conversations with deceased loved ones on the other side who have not went on into another reality. They're very much still in this reality, their consciousness. But I do believe that our higher self is just kind of overseeing all of these realities. And so, I don't know. It's hard to kind of think about. It's a lot to wrap your mind around, but it's fascinating. Indeed.
Would you mind just defining for people who don't know that term higher self? Like what does that mean when you say your higher self?
Yeah, so the way that I would articulate it is that we are, one consciousness, but when we come into these physical incarnations, only a small slice of our consciousness incarnates. And a large portion of our consciousness remains in the astral realm, and that's our higher self. And that is intuition. That's where our intuition is coming from, our higher self, because we're tapping into the part of ourself that knows that it's one with the divine, right? Like it has not fragmented off and forgotten and fallen asleep. That's the part of ourselves that is awake. And so all of those subtle intuitive hits that we might get, they're coming from our higher self. And some might like to even just say God or source. But that's true as well, because our higher self is one with God.
True.
And so it's, I mean, it's all one, right?
I think
Yes.
especially in Christianity, we often say Holy Spirit, whereas spirituality, maybe more spirituality minded person would say my higher self. But it's that slice of that spark of God in you is what I'm hearing. Like it's that that part of you that hasn't forgotten that it's not fragmented. Yeah, that
Yeah.
helps a lot. I think
Yeah.
because if anybody's coming from my background, they won't have heard that term, or if they have heard that term, it's with a bad connotation. So that helps.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I should have, defined my terms. I say higher self a lot just because for me, it
too.
just makes a lot of sense. It's a very lucid way of explaining things,
It
especially in a
is.
multiverse conversation. Yeah, we are all one consciousness. So to imagine that we're even a separate self, is an illusion in and of itself.
Right. You could look at this reality as like the Sims video game, right? And you're the Sim character. The person who's controlling that Sim character, to me, would be your higher self.
Yeah.
Like the Sims character is bumping into walls, it's doing all kinds of crazy things, but the oversoul is like watching it happen, the
Yeah.
person controlling is watching it happen down. And I mean, obviously life is a lot more than Sims video games, but it's a good visual to like, see,
It is. It
Yeah.
is.
I think it's a good analogy.
yeah.
Um,
And with like the parallel realities, and the projection of things, a lot of people don't realize like everything that we see is what Annalise said, like a manifestation. It came from somebody's brain. The house you live in, the building you work in was a blueprint at one point that came out of somebody's brain.
yeah.
Also, the things like this microphone or this computer, like right here, this computer camera, it's just atoms, right? It's not even solid. It's just vibrating at that exact frequency where my finger won't go through it. If my finger vibrated at the frequency of that camera, my finger would go straight through it like a ghost. That is what kind of like what a parallel reality is. If you're in that frequency, that's your reality. But if you turn the radio dial and go to a different frequency, that will be your reality. And I know I'm trying to tie two things in together at the same time, but what I'm trying to say is everything is off of frequency and vibration, and that includes your reality as well through parallel realities.
Yeah, that was very
Totally.
well said. I like the way you explained that because everything is frequency and everything is energy. And that, yeah, I mean, that's what it is. Matter, everything that's solid is just energy, what slowed down,
Yeah.
to
exactly.
matter, to a solid state. But in reality, all of that is really illusory. So yeah, it's just about tuning in, our vibrations with all of these different realities, all of these different possibilities, right? Because everything starts as a thought. Everything is on the mental plane before it's ever in the physical. Everything that's ever been invented was first a thought. Then, and then it, someone took action, like a table, whatever. If you're going to build a table, it's a thought first, right? Everything. Yeah, everything.
That's right.
And so those who are master inventors, those who are really inspired, they are super tapped into that higher self, that intuitive, they're grounded in the moment. They're listening to their intuition. They're drawing things out of the ether. They're not lost in thought overly complicating
Overthinking.
things in their minds, over conceptualizing. Yeah. I think it was Einstein said that when I think a million times, I come up with nothing. I come up with empty. But when I swim in a sea of silence, the answer finds me. That's beautiful. That's what it
That's
is
right.
exactly. Because your higher self always knows, and your higher self is always trying to tell you if you could just open yourself up and receive it.
Right.
That's
And you're a
right.
creator, first and foremost. And when you can tap into that creative mindset like these inventors, you're at your highest self. Like you are literally doing your purpose on earth is when you can tap into the things that you like to do and do it to your fullest potential. You then can start creating and at least create songs. Brandy creates books. I create things. Nobody needs to know what I create, but everybody creates. You just
That's
gotta
right.
realize,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got kind of tripped out. I know we keep saying this, and Brandy's probably like, okay, enough. But when we moved here to this new home a couple weeks ago, I got tripped out because I was looking around and I told Parker, feels like I created this in my, like it's what my brain looks like on the inside. this home and property. Like, it's tripping me out because I've dreamed it, I've lived it. What is happening? And I said, it feels like I made this in my head, and here it is. And he said, yeah, because you did. And I was like, what? Like, this is like accidental manifestation combined with just divine, God's goodness. It's crazy whether it's purposeful or not, when you tap into that awareness, that like awareness superpower we all have.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, well, guys, I thought we should maybe talk about the Mandela Effect, right? I mean, that is a huge part of, when we talk about the multiverse, and there's TikTok videos galore for anybody who's interested in going down that rabbit hole, really. But this conversation really would not be complete without mentioning the Mandela Effect. And so, for anyone who's not familiar, the Mandela Effect is where large groups of people remember an event differently, like Nelson Mandela dying in prison. This phenomenon was actually named after Mandela. But in our reality, Mandela was released alive from prison, and then he went on to be a great leader, and he died of respiratory failure at 95. But there is a large group of people who have vivid memories of him dying in prison. And another example of the Mandela Effect is the spelling of the Berenstain Bears. There's a large group of people who remember it being spelled Stein, but if you go back and look, it's spelled Stain. And so that's a whole trip all in itself. But it's as if, people originally experienced one timeline, but now they inhabit a slightly different one with the details changed just a little bit. And there are a lot of examples of this, but the one that I identify with the most, probably the one that rocked me to my core, because when I first heard of the Mandela Effect, I thought I wasn't even on a spiritual path. So I was like, that's just a bunch of nonsense. What are you even saying? And but the one that rocked me, the one that I had to stop, it gave me pause, was the Monopoly Man, because I remember the Monopoly Man with a monocle. Like, in my mind's eye, the Monopoly Man has this little monocle that he's looking through. I can see it clearly, but in this reality, if you look it up now, the Monopoly Man has never had a monocle. So
that's wild. That is absurd. And I don't know how that is real. I really don't. That the Fruit of the Loom one got me too, because I remember it being in a cornucopia, like a little brown cornucopia, but if you go back, it's not. But there's a large number of people who that was their reality.
I remember that.
Yes, or the Snow White, where the queen says, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?" Right? But if you go back, it's not there.
She didn't say. Yeah.
She didn't say that. I mean, but you can't tell masses of people that didn't happen. So clearly we've all like collectively jumped timelines or something. What has happened? Like, how do you explain this?
All right, hold on, wait. You talked about the Monopoly Man with the monocle. I was just thinking, like, I remember in the movie Ace Ventura, right? Did y'all see that movie?
He had the monocle.
He had that monocle. That old man was walking down the stairs acting like the Monopoly Man, and then he knocked him out, picked him up on his shoulder with his monocle on, and was like, "Do not pass go. Do not collect $400. And he was like the Monopoly Man because he had the spectacle in it. That's the whole reason he called him the Monopoly Man.
Yeah.
But sure enough, we'll go back and watch the movie, and he won't have it.
That would blow me away right now, because we have seen that so many times. So if we go back and he's not holding the monocle saying, "Do not pass go," I'm going to have some trouble tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, it probably is there, but the Monopoly Man himself, like, if every depiction of the actual Monopoly Man, it's gone. But there are people who remember it, and so you see, that's just evidence that is remembered that way in that, in Ace Ventura. Was it like Sinbad also? There was a movie, what was it, where he was a genie? Do you remember that movie?
Yes.
It never existed, folks. It never existed.
Isn't that crazy?
That is something. That is
what
something.
got me too is, and I might be alone in this one, but I could have promised you that George Lopez died several years ago. Could have promised that he did. Like, I remember it being on like the news. I remember thinking, how sad, I can't watch, I can watch reruns of the George Lopez show, but how sad he's not with us anymore. He's not dead at all. I mean, he was like on Jimmy Fallon or something recently. I saw him. I couldn't believe it. He looked so different. Like, what Can anybody help me understand or help listeners understand what is this witchery? Like, what is happening? Is it timeline jumping? Is it maybe we were tuned into the
Clones.
reality where the Monopoly Man artist chose to do a monocle while other people were tuned into the reality where the Monopoly Man artist chose not to? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
maybe we
I think
collectively
it has something
drew
to
it
do with the
up.
vibration. Like I said, it's like a tuning fork, and we're tuning in and out, of these different timelines. But I definitely would say that the Mandela Effect challenges the idea that reality is rigid and fixed. I mean, for anyone who is maybe on the fence there, but quantum physics supports the idea that reality is malleable, and that's it. Really, it's just it's responsive not just to external forces, but to a collective consciousness and a vibrational alignment. Experiments like that double slit experiment that we already mentioned show that observation affects reality, right? So the Mandela Effect seems to be just an outflow of this quantum phenomenon. It suggests that our collective choices and perceptions are constantly shaping or reshaping the world at a quantum level. Also, another idea is that the Mandela Effect could also be seen as like leaks, where realities overlap briefly and people's memories preserve a version that no longer matches their current dominant reality. And I think maybe it's both. Maybe all of these theories contain some truth, and it's more of a both and not an either or to fully explain it. That's kind of how I see it. I think there's truth in all of these different theories, and perhaps all of these things might create the Mandela Effect. Like maybe we are having that vibratory, tuning fork situation that would cause us to remember something differently, but also maybe we're jumping timelines at times. So maybe all of these things are happening. Because what is life? If we live in a multiverse, what even is this world that we live in, right?
Yeah, especially when we're creating our own realities and just going off of collective consciousness for a lot of ideas and a lot of things like the Empire State Building or Mandela Effect stuff,
Yeah, it's fascinating.
It's bringing up that the scripture, be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yeah.
And that one's preached, often, but not quite in this way. But I have found it is by this way, renewing your mind to like, your awareness has to be on the love, the light, the positive, the reality that you desire to be created through you, that God's will be done through you. You got
Yeah.
to transform your mind to transform your reality, just like the Bible said. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just things are so misinterpreted in so many ways, but yeah.
Well, and Jesus said as much, you'll have what you believe. And so it really is about what we come into, what we believe is our frequency, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that's a whole other conversation, which we'll get into the manifestation, aspect of things. But it really is, our frequency is what we actually believe down deep. And so that is what's creating our reality. And Jesus said it, that you'll have what you believe for. If you believe it and you do not doubt, then you can say to this mountain, move, and it will move. So, yeah.
Amen,
And who wants-
sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, and who wants to say also it's the same exact saying as the laws of attraction? He's saying the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Laws of
Yeah.
attraction and what Jesus has said in his words, not what has been changed, but what he preached and what he said and how he wanted people to act and how he wanted people to be on this earth. That is what he was telling people, the laws of attraction, or the universal laws. In the words of that time, I mean, of course there wouldn't be laws of attraction. I mean, maybe it was on the emerald tablets of Trismegistus, but I mean, in the overall culture of that time frame, there was never words like that. So Jesus came and
Yeah.
said the universal law for the most part in Christian, in Jesus terms.
Right. Yeah. Because we're all using the words of our culture, right? The thing,
Right.
the
Yeah.
way that we articulate things is consistent with the culture that we're in. And so, you wouldn't use a term that hadn't been coined yet, unless you were the one to
Exactly.
coin it. And so that makes total sense. Like Paul talked about the flesh. That was the word that he used to describe the ego.
Right.
In today's, terminology, we would just say ego, the ego self, but he was all about the flesh or the carnal nature. He's speaking of it in those terms, saying the same thing. He's just using his own words.
I think science is catching up to what people were saying back in the olden days. Like like we just said, like they didn't have words like they do today for scientific terms, but the scientific terms, as the terms get called up, they're starting to realize what they were saying the same thing. You know, modern terms
Yeah.
now, ancient terms then, it's all the same. It's all on the same level. That's it's just catching up together and syncing together.
Yeah, 100%, because we're all drawing from that same consciousness. That higher self is drawing, it's that same, and it's symbolic, which that's why synchronicity is so cool, because, that higher self is not speaking to you with words, in a particular language. And, I wish it would. Like,
Yeah,
I wish
right.
it would just send me a note, just type me out, what do I need to do? But it's highly
Yeah,
symbolic. And so we have to translate these symbols into our language, perpetually. So, it's
absolutely.
fascinating how that works. But I thought we should also touch on astral projection as it relates to the multiverse. And for those who aren't familiar, astral projection is the idea that your consciousness, your awareness, your soul or energy body can separate from your physical body and travel independently through different planes of existence. And it's often described as an out of body experience where you still feel like you, but you're no longer limited by physical space or physical senses. And science doesn't have a clear explanation for this phenomenon. Some would say that it was just vivid lucid dreaming, disassociation, or neurological phenomena. However, those who experience it describe it as significantly more real than dreams, and it's often life-changing in the way that a near-death experience is life-changing or can be life-changing. And many near-death experiences are also out-of-body experiences as well, so that's an interesting correlation. But one aspect of astral projection that discounts the idea that it's just vivid dreams or a neurological event is that people have been able to see what people are saying and doing in various locations while they are out of their body. And they've been able to later confirm with the people that what they observed and what they saw was indeed really happening at that time, that they were observing it from that astral realm. So that's just validation right there. And my sources through the veil also tell me that astral projection is indeed real. And they tell me that all children astral project until they reach a certain age because, they're just so tapped into the spiritual realm. It's just automatic for them. And adults, they can also astral project, but they have to learn how to do it. And my sources say that it's important to be careful doing it as an adult. When I asked my grandmother how I could learn to astral project, she said, careful. And then she explained that as kids, we have a being that is assigned to us as someone who meets us in the further. That's how they articulate it. And my sources refer to these beings as lanterns, dream wardens, and path keepers. But as adults, we don't have anyone meeting us in the further to watch over us. So there are risks there that we need to consider. And I think the primary risk is crossing into another timeline and getting stuck. Like, that's the main concern that I could think of, that we would get permanently separated from our bodies. And if anyone's ever seen the Netflix series Behind Her Eyes, it will definitely make you think twice about astral projecting. And I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but if you do watch it, just know it starts slow, so you have to kind of push through the first few episodes because it'll seem uninteresting at first. But that ending is such a mind twist, it will haunt you for days. So if you stick it out, yeah, you won't be disappointed.
Thank you, Brandy. I know I'm close with somebody who does astral project, so that's kind of given me like a glimpse into it. I wasn't super aware of it before, but I think it's important to kind of like clarify that the astral realm isn't like heaven, it isn't hell. It's this place, at least the way I articulate it is, it's kind of like the spiritual wild west, where you are going to have a plethora of spiritual activity, be it, from this dimension, from a different parallel reality, those who have died, those who are astral projecting, those who we think of as angels, so it's, yeah, I've heard don't go towards any black holes if you do find yourself accidentally astral projecting or purposefully, because like you said, it seems impossible that you could get separated from your body and not come back, and yet I think it's totally possible. I don't know. I don't know if the portal conversations have given any light on that, but that one's pretty wild.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, they've told us to be careful. Like, that is a possibility. It's probably not that likely to happen, but it could happen. And I think here's the thing: when we astral project, our spirit leaves our body and we hover over. And so if you just like float around your house, maybe go down the block, I think you're pretty safe because your body's just right there and you haven't gone very far. So you're unlikely to run into any trouble. In fact, I know someone who says that they remember astral projecting as a child. As an adult, they don't do it. They've never tried to do it, but it was just something that they remember doing as a child. And they tell me that they went like down the street, but came right back because they kind of got afraid that they were getting too far away. And so they stayed at home, so to speak, or in their yard or, the neighbor's yard. They didn't venture far away. But we could go further. And that's the word that my people, that my loved ones use. They call it the further. That's where you need that lantern, that guide, that being to help. Because if you go further into the astral realm, you're leaving, what's closest to the earth, and you're getting into something that's a little more convoluted. So you need a guide to help you and make sure you get back to your body. And if you go far enough, there are these alternate realities. There are doorways, portals. And yeah, you could cross into another timeline while you astral project. And I guess there is the risk of getting stuck. I can't imagine it because I can't even imagine what it looks like, what it is like. But yeah, I would say that, it's probably something that you shouldn't just do. Well, I don't think anybody could just do it. Anyway, I think you have to study it. I think you have to learn how to do it.
You have to know how to do it. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so two things here. When people have had, and I know my mom in particular, when she was a kid, she got stung in the foot. She was like running around or something and got stung in the foot by like a dirt dauber, or one of those like underground bees, whatever they are. And she got stung in the foot and she was like highly allergic and didn't know. And that night she went to sleep, and sure enough, I guess she was dying in her sleep. But she told me she was she just started floating towards the ceiling. Like she could visibly see her consciousness. She thought she was in her body, just floating up towards the popcorn ceiling, right? And she says she turned around and saw her body laying in the bed. And she said she talked, and she was in the room with her brother at the time. She said she talked, and her body was mouthing the words like, "Go get mom."
Wow.
Or something. She said something that freaked him out so bad. He ran and got her. She ran and scooped her up. And as she scooped her up and whisked her off to the car, she zipped back into her body, or just kind of like was in her body again. I mean, that just should. I know that's not anybody else's experience, but for my mom to say like that happened, that just proves like we're not our body, obviously. I mean, I keep saying that, we all keep saying that. We're all energy, and we can disassociate from our body. And then number two, the CIA has a document already on astral projection. They've actually used astral projection to locate people, to locate certain objects, and it's in documents. I have the documents. I've seen the documents. And I just read an account from a CIA document talking about how a man their guy astral projected and was able to see what was happening like 1 million years ago on the earth. Now when you think like if astral projection is happening, you also know that time is not real. So you can go anywhere you want to and you view things. You can see who, like these guys in particular, they found some dead bodies before. How are you going to find a dead body if you don't even know where it's at, if you're not astral projecting? And in the CIA document, it says you can astral project. The way they do it is they take one earbud, put it in this ear, a different one, and put it in this ear, and they tune each one to different frequencies. I don't know the exact frequency. It's in the document though. And when that happens, their brain starts to like synchronize and make it to where they're able to just astral project. And that's not taught anywhere. Nobody's teaching you that. But CIA has that on patent documents, it's so much stuff out there that nobody's being told, but it's sitting there like right in front of our faces. And I'll post these documents to our social pages, just so everybody can see them, because they're declassified documents.
Yeah,
So these aren't like fake, things.
I feel like this can happen too accidentally sometimes, like doing any kind of breath work or like deep meditation. Seriously, today I was just exhausted today, and I laid down for like 20 minutes just to kind of breathe and rest. I wasn't really sleeping, But I was doing some deep breath work and just really trying to meditate. And I started to feel a very strange like sensation in my ears and my mind that felt like I was separating from the physical for a moment. But I was in such a light sleep that I was able to just kind of wake back up. But I felt it, and I thought of this episode today, and I thought, I think I might have been kind of going somewhere, but maybe I wasn't. I might not be ready for that might not be my path, but I felt that tug that I've heard people talk about. So it's wild what can happen when you just breathe really deep and get really still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I think the power of the mind, everything, like we've been saying, everything's mental. So I do think it is about our perception and our mental focus. And yeah, so like when you meditate and you're breathing, you are trying to separate from the physical in the sense that you're trying to be fully the awareness behind all of that physical. And so if we could just get to that space where we're totally in resonance with the spiritual side of things and not resonating with that physical side, then wouldn't we just separate from our body? Isn't that what happened to Enoch? He walked with God and then he was no more. Didn't he just separate from his physical body because he vibrated so high he couldn't stay there?
Yeah. That's honestly, that's what happened during my psychedelic experience, was a separation from the body. And I went up into what I would describe as up into the universe, just like up into this vastness. But I didn't really go anywhere. My awareness realized I was always the universe. And I had to, but it did, like if I'm trying to put it into words, there was a moment where I had to say, bye-bye, me. I'm going to go on a little like exploration. And that's when I kind of melted into the oneness that all is, as far as my awareness of it. Gosh, reality is so trippy and so vast and so infinite, just like God, because God is this reality. It could never just be conceptualized and one-dimensional.
Yeah. Totally agree with that.
Well, as we wrap things up, I'm just reflecting on the implications of living in a multiverse. Like, what if life is just one big quantum rabbit hole, right?
Think so.
Yeah, I do too. And I would say that living in a multiverse means realizing that life isn't a straight line. It's a shimmering web of endless possibilities. Every thought, every act of love, every leap of faith weaves another thread into an infinite tapestry. Every moment is pregnant with potential in ways that we can't even fathom. And when we see life as a multiverse, it brings into sharp focus that Earth, our dramas, aren't the center of creation. It brings some perspective and it allows us to loosen our grip. I think part of awakening is realizing that you're more than this physical incarnated self. And even more to that point, you're more than this one lifetime of experience, right? You're not just one fixed self. You're actually a symphony of selves, and each version is living out different possibilities. You're a multi-dimensional being, a collection of endless expressions, and your essence isn't bound by one personality, one fate, or even one lifetime. Also, I think it's comforting to realize that nothing is ever truly lost. Death doesn't exist, and we're ultimately journeying through this cosmic rabbit hole as a way of remembering our divine essence. And all of it is an elaborate tapestry of experiences designed to bring us back into alignment, back home, and to a place where restoration and reconciliation is finally fully realized.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you, Brandy.
Yeah.
I just want everybody to know too, like, you don't have to be your current self for ever and ever. Like, I mean, just like what we've been saying on the podcast, just you can tune in to the reality that you want. You can. I don't care if you're poor. I don't care if you're rich. You can literally tune in to whatever reality that you want to experience on this earth, because you are a creator of your reality. I'm not your creator or the creator of your reality. You are. So if you want to have that job, act like you have that job and prepare to have that job. If you want to lose weight, start walking through life like you are that person who lost all that weight, and be grateful. And you'll see the weight come off, and do the things that you have to do. It's as simple as changing your mindset, changing the radio dial. And when you get focused on that, when you change that radio dial and you start embodying and envisioning that person that you want to be, your life will change. I promise you. But you have to do that. If you don't, if you keep saying, I'm so sick, I'm so poor, I'm so blah, 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 you know what? That's what the universe is going to give you, you know? So just know that your words will create your reality. Your words are a spell. That's why you do spelling when you spell out the word, okay? It has meaning behind it. Now, I've learned it the hard way. So just listen to me, all right?
Yeah, I've cast more than a few negative spells on
Right, yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, but yeah, I mean, when we think about, reality, it's so vast and so complex, and it's beyond anything we could even conceptualize. And when we see it like that, we can live with some wonder, live in the mystery and allow for all of these, possibilities to become manifest in our lives. We realize that nothing is impossible, which is what Jesus said, right? Like nothing is impossible to him who believes. And that's really it. If you can imagine it, then you can have it. It's really that simple.
That's right.
And I love how
because it exists.
Yeah.
I love how the universe will support you in that too.
Yeah.
Or, as more comfortable language for me is that God will support you. Sometimes that's a little more comfortable to think of it that way. Even though God's not the Zeus in the sky, God is that life force that is supporting you, that's giving you breath, that's giving you the desires of your heart. So when you finally act on them, God's right there to catch you and push you on through it with the gracious flow of life. It's really a beautiful thing when you surrender to it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love the way you articulated that.
Okay.
Well, any last thoughts before we wrap this episode up?
Not here.
That's it.
I think we said it all.
Well, thank you all for transcending this rabbit hole with us. As always, cosmic blessings and peace.
Do you ever grow discouraged by the weight of this world? Does Big Brother get you down with all the lies that he's told? Does the gloom and doom of nightly news haunt your dreams? So you scroll instead of sleep, 'cause distraction is key. But as long as there is still a sun up in the sky, I can choose to live on the sunny side. It's somewhere between burying my head in the sand and falling down the rabbit hole again. I was sleeping just fine peacefully inside my American dream, awoken when those puppet strings were cut right off. The evidence you can't ignore, sheriff call you misinformed. I know the truth, but trying not to lose my mind. I'm somewhere between burying my head in the sand and falling down the rabbit hole again. It takes a worried man to sing a worried song, and the state of humankind had me humming alone. Hello, common sense, I'm convinced we've lost our way, sold our attention to the system. Now there's power to reclaim, but as long as there's a heart beating in my chest, I will cling to hope that's true. I will